I'm off work today. So at 3 a.m., which is when I usually go to sleep, I'm planning my morning. I'll get 8 hours of good rest. Packed my disc golf bag. So I'd have something to look forward to. Get my dog exercised and my technique back. But I checked my phone just before my head hit the pillow. What? I have a message? Are all the attractive single women in their late 20s finally figuring out where'd all the good men go? We're at the chess club training, ladies? No, my cousin Ashton. Which move you making? Oh, it appears Ashton is playing the Martin bot now. Some guys get snaps when I Netflix and chill. I get a text from my older cousin. Hey, let's mess up some chess robots. I am taking a break from online chess. I actually didn't play any over the board during April either. I'm rested. I've lost weight. My dog is getting more attention. I'll be back with a vengeance in mid-May. I am the 170th rated athlete in the great state of Missouri, which, aside from the very heavily populated states, California, Florida, New York, Missouri has to be a very strong chess state, if nothing else because of the St. Louis Chess Club, and three of the top chess universities are in Missouri: SLU, Webster, and Mizzou. Though my Missouri State Chess Bears will be coming for you. I've done it tired. I've done it between work shifts, and my chess journey is only beginning. Ash, would you like to kick Jimmy's ass real quick? Would you like to kick Jimmy's ass real quick? Jimmy's ass so we can enjoy our time after you get off tomorrow.
earlier today and trying to do it with mental health and stuff.
Mm-hmm.
And
I'm recording. You want to come in here? I just checked my text message. I didn't even realize your screenshot was from Martin, which I believe is an upgrade from Jimmy.
yeah,
Does that mean you did the chess things to Jimmy's brain?
so I definitely
He's up
moved
all the
that my
time.
first 2 or 3 games. I was like, man, there's sometimes I have a tendency to play too aggressive.
You have a tendency to open too aggressively.
Yeah.
Here, move my disc golf bag. This is my cousin Ashton. He has faced Jimmy twice on stream, but without me knowing it, Ashton has been training.
Now
Hashtag late blooming chess prodigy
yeah.
number 2.
Give me a drink or some rules. But yeah, I have a tendency to, kind of rush things. And I'm just like, okay, boom, I can jump or, I can take this one. And then without going, oh, I should have analyzed the board a little
I
better.
hit record, did I?
But yeah,
Did I record?
But yeah, there's times where I
don't
need
think I
to,
hit record.
to be more methodical to analyze what the other pieces can do.
I think I record.
This chess is a very calculated.
No, I did hit record. You're good. Yeah, I hit record. It's recording.
Okay.
Was that the feedback you got from the engine, or is that your own conclusion based
My
on
own
your
conclusion.
self-analysis?
Yeah, because there were some times where,
Self-aware after a few weeks.
yeah,
What made you determine you were opening too aggressively?
just by getting shit knocked off that are not my pawns, you know,
Mm-hmm.
like, having shit happen way too early, like, having like this guy get knocked off, for example, or this one way too soon in the match where you're like, the fuck am I doing?
Via exchange, or did you lose it and not get any compensation?
There were a few times where I would get compensation, and then there were others where I was like, dude, I totally just blanked on that one.
Mm-hmm.
But I guess that's also a part of learning.
Oh yeah. If you ever feel like it's too hard, you should look at some of my early games.
See, and I also sometimes wonder if I am not being aggressive enough with this piece
With the
here,
queen?
with the queen, yeah.
In general, that's great that you brought that up. In general, the queen should be the last to develop,
Mhm.
simply because, yeah, you can get it out and it can control things, but it's also a target for the enemy.
Yeah,
So you want to kind of wait and get your minor pieces active first, kind of like in a real war.
hmm
It wouldn't be wise to bring out your top generals and risk their safety before you even understand what the battlefield's going to look like. So get your
gotcha.
snipers out, get your bishops, your snipers, get your knights out, and then bring out your big guns once you have some clarity.
Well, and I noticed too, like, I get a little caught up in moving, these fellas here,
Those
my
pawns,
pawns, yeah.
not terrible, but
But I can't because then this would take me here.
yeah, and that's another reason. Where if your bishop were there, you could justify that exchange.
But I can
Yeah.
get to where I move this but down here in the corner, right? To protect it.
Hmm?
Ta-da. Okay, I'm gonna take you. Should I play this piece here? Because then my next move, I can move something here, and then if he takes me, then I wouldn't be in a position to,
I love you.
yeah,
Yeah.
yeah.
The
I'm daring
calculation is just fabulous. It's just the effort. Okay.
So now, what's the better move though? Is it
You have choices, actually.
is it here or
It's
is
not
it
there.
here?
Look at all your options. First of all, why would I say it's not B takes on A6, which is how you say that? It would be B takes on A6. Why do I not advocate for that move?
Because the rook can take it.
It could. Any of those. How many pieces could take on
Or
A6?
actually, even this one could too, right?
And there's a third piece that can
On the
capture.
diagonal
Yes, there's
piece.
three options. So the correct reason why takes on A6 is not great is twofold. One, you're allowing the opponent to get activity.
Hmm.
Two, your pawns are now doubled, which means they cannot support each other anymore.
Is there any move that I can make to where, let's say, I sacrifice a piece and get this guy moved into a position where, I can take
Yeah,
advantage of it later?
so good. I like the way you're thinking. Is there a pawn capture where your pawn cannot be recaptured? Those two pawn capture choices you have, right?
Yeah, it would be this one
And, or I mean, or sorry, or
or this one.
no, well, I mean, there's
Or
three,
no,
I
the
guess.
diagonal
I'm
one.
talking about the C5 pawn, though. There are two captures the C5 pawn
Uh,
can make, which are the one you showed and, yes,
yeah,
no,
this one and this one.
and that one.
Yeah.
So, which of those pawn captures does not allow your pawn, which just did the capturing, to be recaptured?
Okay, so yeah, if I did this here and then yeah, this one could be fucked, right?
The opponent
Or no,
cannot
actually
immediately.
he could get me with this one, right? But or no, because he's
Mm-mm.
this one's protected by
Yeah, you're correct. So if you take on D6, it's going to get recaptured.
yeah.
If you take on B6, I'm not saying that's your best move, but it is an option, and it will not. You will win a pawn as opposed to just breaking even.
So let's say I decide to move, let's say just even, or actually, well, couldn't he technically go boom, boom, and knock this person?
The knight takes on F2. You're saying
Yeah,
yes, but generally a pawn is worth one, and a knight is worth three.
so he'd be foolish to.
It would be foolish. Great job.
Okay,
An interesting move.
okay. What if I go here?
What does that accomplish?
Well, I'm thinking that if I go here and then, I want to move him here, I'll sacrifice him and then I'll get him with this guy after.
So the H3 move is to set up G4.
Mm-hmm.
Interesting. The reason I would not advocate for that is those pawns are going to protect your king eventually. So be careful pushing those more than one square.
Okay.
But I like your thought. I would, can I recommend, this is not a recommendation, here's an option.
Mm-hmm.
Bishop to G2. What would the benefits of that move be?
To G.
Saying to make it.
Mm. To G. Well, it could be that if he doesn't fucking move this piece immediately, I can get him with the next.
You could also, do you mind if I touch the mouse real quick?
Yeah.
So, yes, you would be threatening the knight, is what you're saying, correct?
Mm-hmm.
From there, that would also pin the knight to the rook, which means that knight, if your bishop is here, is temporarily frozen because it can't move without the opponent losing the rook.
Okay.
So you'd be controlling a long diagonal, which could be a very valuable strategy.
You think it's more valuable than taking this piece here and not getting,
If it were me, I would either make that bishop move or I would take the B pawn as opposed to the D pawn, because the D pawn is just going to get, if you take there, it's just going to get recaptured.
Yeah, so if I move this here, what's his next most logical move? If I take
Queen,
this.
queen or knight takes back.
I'm trying to think if there's any way where
It's not awful.
I could somehow, if the queen, so if I did this, took this here, you said the queen take this back, right?
Probably so.
And then if it did, no, I couldn't. I don't have anything that moves diagonally in that route to,
Not, yeah, your dark bishop isn't ready yet.
yeah.
Really, I guess any of those, because the advantage, though you wouldn't gain a pawn as you would with takes on B6, you would eliminate central pawns. which is Jimmy's only real advantage right now is he has central pawns and you do not have central pawns. So I would say the bishop to G2 move, or anything you do with your C pawn, including pushing to C6, is not wrong.
So what if I did this? What if I moved my pawn to, and I'm starting to get more interested in chess now because there's so many variables to it. But let's say I move this pawn to A5,
Hmm.
and then this rook would he, surely you wouldn't want to try to take anything that I'm doing here because if, you know,
Interesting. So yeah, so great question. So if A5, what would you do as black? In your head, if you can flip the
yeah,
board,
so what I'm
what would
getting
your
at
reply be?
is like, so if I was to take this
Hmm.
guy, or no one, actually, not even yet, because I have this guy pinned, this pawn, to where if he took me, then I'll just get him right back anyway, right?
Yeah, A6. Yeah, yeah.
But let's say I move him here, this pawn here,
Hmm.
and then he, well, and then I decide, later I want to take this guy or this pawn,
Hmm.
and then he can take this guy with his rook, but then my guy that's moved up here would be able to, or it wouldn't because it's got to be diagonal.
No, you're thinking right though. Yeah, no, I wouldn't make that move because if you made the A5 push, the opponent has the option to just take with the A takes B.
Okay. So
I like the thought of doing something with your D pawn, with your C pawn, and none of the three choices are wrong. So what are the three choices you have with your C5 pawn right now?
my C5. So what are the three choices?
Yes.
So I can either knock this guy up,
Hmm. Or,
knock this guy up, or I mean, move it here, I guess.
yeah, and none of those are necessarily wrong. It's just a matter of preference because the advantage of not taking and pushing forward is look how connected your pawns are, and they're in his territory. So if your pawns are all connected, how does he get any of that active? All his army is just stuck. It can't fight, and that can be the purpose of pawns and why they are risky once they start getting into the enemy territory. You're controlling all his space
Yeah. And let's say,
because it's only two squares the bishop has to activate to, or
so let's say I move this pawn here.
Mhm,
He
which
can
is cool.
take this, but he can take me here, right? With this knight,
He
right?
could.
But would be kind of, I mean, well, I don't know. Trying to see what
And what would happen if the opponent did take on c6 with the knight? Assuming you made the c5 or the
um,
c6 push,
I would hit him with this
you would
guy.
yeah, he would simply lose material.
Yeah. And then, but I almost, because dude, I will say this piece
Hmm.
here, I kind of liked your thought process on the diagonal play because, dude, I had this one guy fuck me so many times because it's the one piece that I kind of kept overlooking its capabilities.
The bishop,
Yeah.
yeah, it snipes. It's kind of like a sniper versus a short range like UFC fighter.
Oh, 100%.
Hmm. Now, something that is interesting is so now we have our options, which is the bishop move you mentioned, and then the pawns. And then if you have two ideas that aren't bad, can they work together? Or if you make one of those moves, does it eliminate the other idea from coming to life? So let's say you made that c6 pawn push. Visualize that your pawn is on c6.
Hmm.
Now your bishop fianchetto is blocked,
Hmm.
right? So now if you were on c6 and then your bishop comes, well, now your bishop doesn't have the scope to see the rook anymore, which could be a weakness in that plan.
Hmm.
Not to say it's wrong. I mean, what I'm getting at is there are pros and cons to everything in chess.
Absolutely. Well, and then at what point do I decide, okay, because the rook, it can attack going forward, right?
Oh yeah,
So do I need to get this thing off the line, off its,
you,
axis or whatever?
great question. So it's called a file. So that is the A file. It works vertically,
Hmm.
horizontally, or ranks. So the question you're asking is, if that file opens up,
Hmm.
is my queen in trouble?
Yeah.
So let's visualize there are no pawns on the A file. It's just your queen, your rook, and the opponent rook. Can you visualize that?
No, say it again. Envision one.
There is no A4 pawn for white. There is no A6 pawn for black. They are
Okay. Yeah,
invisible.
then I would have to move this
So
fucker
yes, so
really
then the
quick.
question is, can your queen move in a manner that defends your rook,
Mm,
but escapes the A file so that it doesn't get taken by the enemy rook?
and still protecting this thing?
Yes, yes.
Or well, let's see. How many pieces could it potentially be vulnerable to?
Well,
I
right now
mean,
we're only visualizing the rook, our queen, and our rook. So everything else is there's only three pieces existing in your brain right now, which is the rook, the queen, and your rook. So that rook sees your queen. Your queen needs to escape the rook, but you don't want to lose your rook for free. So your queen needs to move.
it needs to be. Yeah, but see, that's what I'm not getting because you lose your queen, you're fucked.
Well,
Right?
that's what I'm saying. Is
Like,
unless it moved to, it would have to move to a dark square to protect your rook, since your rook is on a dark square.
mm-hmm,
It cannot move. So there's only two dark squares where your queen can protect your rook right now, right?
mm-hmm.
So what are they?
Only two dark squares that can protect my rook.
Yeah,
Um,
that's one.
yeah, this one, and then this one.
Oh, just take
Or,
your rook and draw it out. Take your rook and then draw diagonals. Nope. Yep, yeah, very
oh
good.
yeah,
Yeah,
I
yeah,
get
yeah.
that
I like
idea.
that idea. Ooh. Okay, so then go one more. Yeah. So your queen could defend your rook from there. So now put your queen in your head. In your head, put your queen where your rook is right now and release the rook, since that's
Okay,
not legal.
release it. Okay.
So what if your
Gotta
queen
put
were
the
there? Yeah, so now it could protect your rook as it could from B2.
okay. And the queen's capabilities.
Yeah.
Okay. I'm just it takes me a little bit longer to map out.
Hmm. No problem.
Well, because so for me, I'm like, if I move this queen over here, am I gonna be vulnerable to this? No, not really. Unless I moved it to a really
Okay.
fucking
So if everything else was off that chessboard on the screen and it looked like this instead. So this is the same A file. You have your rook, which is that rook.
hmm
You have your queen, which is your queen there, and you have the opponent rook.
hmm
Okay. So the risk, of course, is I don't want to get in your face, but black
There you go.
takes your queen, right?
hmm
If the file were open. So can your queen here move to defend your rook? That way, after rook takes, your queen simply takes back.
Okay, so you're saying that you're okay. So also your definition, because with chess terminology, you're gonna have to help me out with this. So
I understand.
protecting a piece can also just mean, me, you getting one of my pieces, I get one of your pieces.
Yes.
Oh, okay. I
Yeah.
didn't know if it meant like
Hmm.
completely outright nothing gets taken
Hmm.
or
Yeah. And one thing that is different with me, I don't give a shit what you call anything. If I say something that's correct and you say it like terminology wrong or vice versa, as long as you understand, I don't give a shit.
hmm
But protecting is a fine word.
Okay, so
So that means, as you said, B2 could, as you said, protect your rook,
yeah.
and Queen 2 C3 could protect your rook because they're both because it sees it. But then the knight would steal your queen.
But so would it be worth me moving my knight here? And then he would take him or take my knight,
Could
and then I go diagonal and take his shit.
that in an ideal world that would happen? Yeah. Now that the thing that you have to consider is
He
that
goes on the retreat.
well, or there is no threat to the knight. So if your bishop, if your yeah, he doesn't have to take it though. Like beginners will usually just take if they can, but there's nothing to say that his knight can't just sit there.
hmm
But if you do make a move like that in the back of your army, you will lose that pawn.
So really, I'm gonna leave it up to you because I'm learning from you. What's the best strategic move to make overall, in your opinion? Like,
To answer your question, first I would like to say you do not want to lose your c pawn for free because then, like I said, your pawns can start swallowing up space.
mhm.
No, no, no. If the black pawn were on c5 instead of yours, not only are you down a pawn, your pawns are stuck.
Hmm.
So you don't want to lose that, which is why I would recommend any of those three pawn moves just for learning purposes. Let's say C6.
Yeah, and I
Just
felt
push it.
like C6.
Sure.
And I felt
Or
like
that's fine. Yeah.
earlier when I was playing too, another thing that I wasn't doing well enough is I was trying to, think of ways that I could just knock things off with my pawns rather than having to strategically use them to protect
Mm.
other pieces.
Say that again.
Like, just being super impatient with my pawns,
Okay.
like, driving them too far forward.
Yeah.
And
Well, I'll say this. That's great that you realize that already. I, when I was in the intermediate levels, which is higher than Jimmy, but not very good, I would have one focus point per game. So it might be literally just to push my pawns too far so I get more comfortable seeing how it works. Then
Mhm.
some I might try to leave it back. Then some I would push my queen too early. And I would just like one piece of chess at a time get better at it.
Yeah. Okay.
But in general, yeah, you're gonna want to eventually get comfortable pushing your pawns and knowing when to. So
Okay, so here, this is what I'm thinking. I'm
mhm.
thinking I move this one here.
Your pawn.
Yep. Because
Okay, why?
mm, I don't know. I mean, well, hold on a second. I had something going in my head
Hmm.
cooking. Da, 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 da. So if I went here, because I mean, I don't know if he'd be dumb enough to maybe I could advance this one neck after to
Mm,
here,
mm.
and then if he wants to be dumb enough to or brave, or I don't know if you call it dumb or just a trade,
Dumb and
but
brave can be very close cousins.
yeah. So I'm like, yeah, would it be worth it? I mean, well, what's his pawn count versus mine, or is that something important to not?
Right now you're up one, but I wouldn't worry about it at all yet. I would worry about attacking and not getting checkmated. And anticipate plus two. So that'll answer most of your questions. Is if you made that H6 or H3 move, anticipate two moves ahead. Which what I mean by that is that queen is in line with your rook now. So that idea we had with our fianchetto bishop,
Mhm.
now the opponent kind of has a similar setup.
And how many spaces? Or well, it can't go past anything that's occupied by your own.
Very true.
Yeah.
Yeah. So now the only thing I would say is consider the risk of that knight moving and the queen seeing your rook,
Mm.
which the fianchetto bishop, or sorry, the bishop to G2 move becomes something to consider because at least it will defend your rook.
See, this is where my big thing with having to learn chess is
Hmm.
just assessing risk versus reward and
Oh yeah.
knowing when, it's worth losing a piece to
Yeah.
like, so my mindset is like, if I move this, knight here and he wants to take my shit, well, then I'll take him here.
Great. Well, hold
That's,
on. Don't do it. Don't do it. Don't do it.
uh,
But think plus two, right? Because yes, if you moved your knight there, the knight would take, but then we have that reveal. So the knight is revealing the queen, and the queen discovers your rook.
well, can you
So yeah,
break that down for me?
yeah. You might as well do the arrows. It's
Yeah,
easy. So
absolutely.
you were saying you were considering this, right?
Mm-hmm.
And then knight takes, and then you would take is what you're seeing.
Mm-hmm.
I agree. That is what might happen when that knight takes. That queen sees your rook, and you lose your rook. Which is why
So,
that move is now eliminated from our candidate moves or options.
okay, is there, so can I work this pawn up this way to, better get this rook off that line?
Great idea. If I were to make a pawn move right now, it would certainly be f3. F3 does two things. Do you see F3 first? I want to make sure you visualize it before I talk.
F3. Yeah.
Yeah. So don't make it yet. That would serve two purposes. One, the enemy knight has to move now, else F takes on E4, right?
Mm-hmm.
You see that?
Yeah.
But also, if that knight moves, the queen now can no longer see your rook because F3 is covered with your queen. Here, I'll draw arrows. So if that knight were to move somewhere like anywhere, and your pawn were here, now the queen cannot capture. The queen's diagonal is killed. Its power on the diagonal is killed. And your knight also can support the pawn. So that's an interesting move. I'll say this and this will answer your question. So you have two things, major things in the position to consider. That pawn is going to be lost. Also, there is a risk of that queen seeing your rook. So how can you defend that pawn since count captures? Right now, the black bishop and knight hit the pawn. You only have one protector of that pawn, right?
Mhm.
Which means, like I said, you will lose that pawn. So saving that pawn would be great, but like we're talking about, there's trade-offs in chess.
Yeah.
Losing your rook would be detrimental. So I would probably consider f3 because it buys you time to protect that pawn. So if f3, that knight has to move now.
Mm-hmm.
And when that knight moves wherever it wants to go, well, actually, no, that's not the truth. Sorry, I'm confusing myself. So if there, then the knight will take there. So we actually don't want to do that. I would go bishop g2.
Bishop G2.
Yeah. Sorry, I'm tired as well.
I know you're good, man.
And bishop is going to protect your rook. Yeah.
Okay. And then I also
Hold up.
I know, I'm just checking out to see. Sometimes I like to look and see what.
Yeah, just don't make a move yet because he just ruined his game. And that's the key when you're learning is it's going to be a lot of capitalizing on mistakes. That's a great job. It's a great job. Okay, now this is why it's important to consider combining those ideas and to always be looking because now we have the same concept. The bishop is draw an arrow. It's a right click.
Right click.
Yeah, right click the enemy bishop and hold it. Yeah. Now take it all the way to your rook while holding right click. Oh, hold on. Yeah. Oh, click it with the left first. I think we've. Yeah. So you saw an arrow come. Yeah. Okay. So now right click.
Yeah. Why is it not doing it?
Oh,
here, I'll let you do it.
Yeah. Yeah. So watch my finger. So right now, right click. Now pull.
And am I doing it with?
Oh no, you're doing it with the mouse movement. Don't roll your finger. Yeah. Now draw all the way to your rook.
I mean,
that's okay. It took me a year before. There you go. Yeah. But you see how it's going to hit your rook?
Mm-hmm.
Okay. Yeah. Now, as we were talking about the f3 idea, now the f3 is very good because it blocks the bishop from seeing your rook. Okay. Also, knight to f3 is reasonable.
Knight to f3.
And anything that's going to block your rook from being hit with the black bishop. Mm-hmm. Sure. And why is that reasonable first?
Why is it reasonable?
Mm-hmm. Aside from it's blocking the rook. So if the light bishop were to take that knight, what would happen? If the light bishop for black took our knight on f3, what would you respond with?
Oh, and then I would. So if he took this here, everybody have what? No, it's not on the same plane.
Right. You'd want to recapture it. So what's the only piece you have is white that
it would knock this off, right? You said.
Yep, very good.
But how? I don't have anything moving diagonal to it.
Well, it doesn't have to be diagonal. Is there any of your pieces that cover it?
Yeah.
No. But your queen could recapture if the bishop captured your knight on f3, right?
Mm-hmm.
Yes. So that's why the knight f3 move is acceptable. But now, what is being threatened?
What is being threatened from me, or
what is black threatening of your army?
Threatening this fucking thing here.
There's two threats. Very good. Your knight and, more importantly,
This guy could get, or no? Or yeah, actually here.
Yeah, so you have two threats to your queen, correct? The knight
Yeah.
and the bishop.
So
So,
I need to move like
very important
here
decision. Yeah,
or here.
your queen has to move in a manner that your queen still protects your knight on f3. So
Okay.
basically it
Right
has to
next
stay
to
on
it.
that third level or rank because that's the only way it can defend your knight.
Yeah, and if he was dumb enough to do that, I could just take it back with the
With
queen.
your queen. But yeah, first you have to move your queen away from the attack, which means what squares are valid. It can't stay on the one attack, it'll get captured.
Yeah.
So it can go to
Yeah,
b3.
it can go here.
Well, no.
Right? Because I thought he could only go over one, or is it two spaces
Are
going
you
down?
saying the queen to e3?
Yeah, I'm saying the queen to yeah, e3.
Well, then what would happen? The knight would.
Oh yeah, so
Yeah, yeah.
sometimes I get it mixed up if it's one over and then down or
Hmm.
two.
Yeah. So basically, you have three moves for your queen.
So I can go.
Whoop, 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 but then it wouldn't protect your knight anymore.
I can just go
No.
back. Or no, because he'd still jump me here, right? But damn.
Think about it this way. We're only looking on that level three. You're on an elevator and it's stuck. You have multiple elevators at the hotel, but all of them are stuck at three. So don't think about anything but the third floor. Your queen is not moving off the third floor. Otherwise, you lose.
Yeah.
So you have any of these
You
one,
can't get
two,
me
three, four.
here.
That's one option. Very good. Keep moving over. Can it going to go to C3?
Mm, yeah.
Yeah, why not, right? Yep,
Hmm.
I agree. Can it go to D3? Just keep going until you meet your knight.
Yeah, it could. Yeah, it could, couldn't it?
Yeah,
Yeah.
very good. Can it go to E3?
No.
Very good. So you have three options. Pick from those three options.
Hmm. Well, would I be in a better position to attack these pawns if I don't know. I mean, because really the only
Um,
goal is to get this thing safe.
yeah, well, I like the thought. The reason I wouldn't worry about the pawns much, A, is we're learning.
Well, I
And
was thinking if once I get this knight moving up this direction some,
yeah,
but I need to
well,
just get this thing
well, the
safe.
downside too, I would first eliminate queen to C3 because if it's on C3, that's a square that you might want to move your knight to usually. It's a
Hmm.
natural development square for the knight, so be careful putting a powerful piece there.
Okay, so
So,
go here.
well, hold on. That's an option. Or D3. Let's think about the pros and cons. If queen to B3, let's consider bishop. So imagine in your head your queen is on B3, and
Mhm.
then the opponent responds with bishop to D5. Can you
Bishop
see that
to
in your head?
d5, you
Yeah,
said?
yeah, yeah.
Da-da. Yeah. What
Hmm.
happens if he goes bishop to d5?
Well, then nothing immediately. But
Yeah.
if that knight were to move, the bishop is discovering your queen. So try to avoid thinking too ahead. Try to avoid your queen even being hit at all, which is why D3 is what I like. It threatens the knight and it mitigates the risk of or the annoyance of bishop to D5 because if it's here, the bishop is two more moves away from hitting it.
Okay.
So I would recommend that's probably what I would do. It's good enough. Yep. So that's what we anticipated, right?
Mm.
So we already decided in our head what we're going to do there, which is why we couldn't move our queen off the third level, which is have to take it. And now we are threatening what? The blacks, which is why he moved it.
Any risk or any danger of the queen getting?
No, no, but you do have a pretty necessary move here. Let's think about it.
Okay.
Has the robot explained to you what a fork is yet?
Uh-uh.
A fork is when your one piece simultaneously threatens two enemy pieces. So can your queen move in a way that threatens the knight and threatens a black pawn at the same time?
where it threatens a knight and a black pawn at the same time.
So let's first look at the knight. What squares could your queen threaten the black knight from?
I mean, right next to it, right?
Yep, that's an option.
And then, I mean, when the
Mm-hmm.
queen can go forward and backward, right?
Mm-hmm.
So I didn't really think about like how you said to threaten the knight, and I mean, I would
Mm-hmm.
just think it's wherever this guy can't, or this knight can't,
Mm-hmm.
fuck with the queen.
Yep. Yep. That's not a bad with your queen, that's a good way to think about it. I'm not necessarily telling you the best move. I'm trying to get you thinking.
No, I feel you. Well,
But
and I
but
don't
that's
want to
that's how you
be.
would want to think about it if we're actually playing properly. Yeah. Don't attack with your queen until you're sure it's safe or it can escape the attack. The best moves are going to be to probably move your knight, bishop, or castle. What I was saying, let me show you something. So what I was trying to get you to look at, if your queen were to be here,
Hmm.
you're forking the knight and that pawn. So just, that would be a fork. Those two arrows, it's attacking two pieces at once. But the knight would simply move. If you were to take that pawn, you can't do that because the rook would slide. Your queen would be pinned to your king. Can you see
Hmm.
that if the rook, imagine the rook's there, your queen is there, you would get a rook but lose your queen, which is bad.
Yeah.
So that's what I'm trying to get you to look at. It's not the move you want to make, but I was trying to get you thinking. So what I would recommend is either castles, because then you're already winning big. All you have to do is make sure your king doesn't get exposed. So I would either castle or I would make any bishop move or knight move. Doesn't matter, up to you. But I probably wouldn't move your queen.
Okay. I'm gonna go.
Yep,
No.
totally fine. Yep. Okay. Now think about this.
I'm gonna.
You have two options. Hold on.
er,
Very careful. You're going to want to recapture it.
Okay,
So
so what if, or no, because if I, or well, no, because I still need to use this pawn to protect this rook.
very good. It's a pin because the enemy rook is pinning it. Very
Yeah.
good.
And then if he decides to get me, then I could then take his shit with this, but then he would take my shit with his rook.
You're saying if the pawn took
No, like if I, yeah, so if I ended up moving this piece here,
the pawn
yeah, the pawn, yeah,
to a5.
yeah.
Why give away the pawn though? Because you're not going to get any compensation.
Well, no, I'm just trying to think of ways that I
No, it's
could
good.
use the knight to maybe attack bait the rook or something.
Ooh, great, great. So think two moves ahead. If your knight were to move, it is threatening the rook, and it cannot be captured, which is your answer.
So you want to be pinned here, right?
No, 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 no. You're talking about the knight, right? Not the pawn.
Yeah,
Focus on the knight. Yeah, because then you don't move that pawn for your rook to be taken,
yeah.
and you also eliminate the threat to that pawn. So why not take it for free, right?
Oh, yeah, for sure.
And now the rook has to move. Yeah.
And be safe here if I move this piece here, right?
Say that again.
If I move my knight here, I would,
Where did
well,
where did where did the rook come from? The rook just came from that square, correct?
yeah.
Yeah. So your knight can't move there, or the rook will move back and capture it.
Oh, yeah, I can go side, yeah,
Yeah. It'll just go back to where it came from.
yeah.
So that's out. Look at castles. So if you just drag your king to G1, yeah, yeah, just click it to G1. Yeah, all the way to G, all the way. Yeah, now release. Ooh, that's a safe king. my favorite kind of king. Isn't that nice?
Yeah.
So now it's not in the center, and that's why if you're now imagine if your pawns were way up there like we talked about, or they're even gone and the rook's open. Now your king is totally exposed if all that happens, which is why I was saying earlier, be real careful with those ideas early.
Mhm. Mhm.
Oh, okay, okay. Oh shoot, that's
I
okay.
didn't mean to do that
That's
at
okay. Yeah,
all.
don't panic. Don't panic.
Dude, I literally
You're
was trying, dude, I didn't even mean to hit that
yeah,
piece.
you're still winning. It's good practice. So now what do we do? We stay calm. Nope, nope.
I just don't go to side.
No, hold on.
No,
No,
the
no, no.
rook can take it, right?
Yes, yes. So it's not ideal. We all mess up though. It's not over. It's not over. See? So now you're up one. It's no big deal. And hold on. Let's think two ahead. You have one check. Always look for checks, captures in the text. So you have one check. Where can you check from? Which your piece is closest to the enemy camp? Yeah, yeah, yeah. So where could you check? There's two checks, but one is not good. That's yeah, you could check from there.
To do that.
I would consider it because your rook cuts off that file, so the king can't get closer. Now you have another check. Where is it?
What? Like, I can't remember what. Okay, yeah. So if you, yeah.
So you have another check, and you can activate a piece and check the enemy king at the same time. Nope, nope. It's on a dark square. So you have to check from a dark square if you're not going to use your knight. Nope.
I don't see what
Can
piece I
so
can.
right now your rooks are not seeing each other, right?
Yeah, no.
That's one of the opening principles. If your rooks are not blocked, they can work together. So can you connect your rooks while giving check? Your
Connecting.
rooks aren't going to move.
So
Yes.
you're saying to move
But we also want to check the king. So what does a bishop move? That checks the king.
here?
Yes. Great job. And of course, the king still cannot go that way because our rook's controlling now. What we love to do, but we can't, is rook to d7 check. Why can we not do that?
Rook to d7.
Mm-hmm.
Because this knight, or no?
Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah, that's exactly right.
Okay.
So something to consider. I haven't looked at this. I'm tired. But in a dream world, we want to, how can we lure that knight away?
How to lure it to just to play ball, to come
Yeah.
and
Well,
attack.
just so our rook can give a check. Just want our rook to give a check. This is not the right move, but it's just you want to start considering these things. We would love for our rook to check from there.
Because
Sometimes there are situations where our
my
dream works
rook
out.
here.
Well, the dark bishop though, right?
Oh yeah.
So first off, there is no way. I've already looked at it. If we could distract that knight, how would we do it? You'd have to give something away.
Wish we
Don't do
could
it,
do
but
that.
yeah, your knight could go there, which would force that knight to make a decision. This is not a good move. But those are things that you want to start considering. Is if that knight's annoying for our plan, which would be the rook check,
But at
can
what
we distract it
point?
without giving away too much?
No, man.
Yep. So the answer is no. But so now we look at try to make if we do you don't have a clear solution, try to make the most powerful enemy piece move. Make them move. Make them mess up. So right now, let's try to make that dark bishop move.
To make this
Yeah. How can we
move
make that move?
here.
Which rook? So we have two options. Yeah. Let's leave. So this rook is in the center. It's controlling a lot. So let's take the one that's not controlling anything, and let's see if we can make the dark bishop move. Very good. Okay. So it moved. and he made the correct choice, or at least a correct choice. But we at least made him make a choice. And now what that freed up is what was that bishop controlling that it no longer is controlling since we made it move.
Um, I don't know.
Draw your arrows if you want.
What was he controlling
Yeah. So
before?
when he was there, sorry, I don't want to mess with your mind.
I know you're
Set that
good.
up. So there he was controlling
Yeah.
which one? We couldn't move there.
E.
Yeah, but now that is available.
So to move this piece here.
It's an option. Or a better way to put it, what just changed in the position? And sometimes that can answer your question of where do I go? What do I move? That was a change in the position. So it wasn't previously allowed. Now it's there. It's an option now. Very good. Okay. So he's panicking. Very good. Okay. Now, so he's freaking out. He's having a little manic episode. We're all human. I've been there. He's probably going through a tough breakup.
You can't.
School bully. I don't know.
Yeah. And if I was to
Incompetence.
take the rook and take out, I know it's just a pawn, but there's nothing that he can really do to me, right?
If you took that pawn,
Yeah.
do it. Okay.
And I can, what, okay, so if I move this rook here, could that benefit me? Because as soon as I can get on the same, plane, like, you know what I'm saying?
Mm-hmm.
Because I don't want to move here because then he can just go sideways and take my piece, right?
You don't want to do that.
Yeah.
So
What if I just moved to 7?
well,
Probably d7.
first off, you got to focus on actually playing proper chess, and he blundered. So we want to take his knight for free. You have two ways you can capture that knight, which is free right now. Which one? So you can do that, or you can take with your knight, right?
Yeah.
Yeah. So which one? And or a better way to put it, what are the pros and cons of both?
Well, I would say that just, I mean, if I'm going to take a piece, it's going to be someone's knight over their pawn, right?
Yeah, you want to take his knight, but do you want to take his knight on a6 with your knight, or use your rook to capture?
I think I would rather use the knight
Okay. Why?
just so I have something that can attack
Good. Okay.
sideways.
Yeah, I mean it's not necessarily wrong. There are two reasons to consider using the rook instead. One is when you take if you were to take with the rook, you are immediately threatening his knight, which forces him to move. And a move is time. So if you make a move, he can't do anything. He can't attack you. He can't. You're in control. Also, if your knight were no longer there, it's on the side of the board. It has much less control. So if your knight moved, then the opponent rook has some options, and your knight is no longer threatening that pawn. But the main reason the rook move would be better is it immediately threatens his knight.
Okay, so go for
So
that.
yeah, it's his other knight too. So he's got to move his knight. Yeah, and he did that. Okay. Now, what are we thinking here?
So,
Can you capture anything and not lose anything of yours? Mhm.
yeah,
Yeah. So
but
if you were to take that pawn, what can you do about it?
I mean, can this piece not go?
No, because he can't checkmate himself, right?
Yeah.
Because it's defended twice, your rook and your knight. So now, oh yeah, I mean you could just take his knight. So that's immediately he blundered his knight because he's losing. He's an idiot. But you could give him a check. That knight's not going anywhere. So he's in check. No, check.
Maybe. So what do you want me to do?
Check him. So the rook could check.
So go
No,
down.
no, 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 check.
See, I'm thinking check is in like you go down to the other side of the fucking
No,
board.
check means you're attacking the opponent king. Checkmate. No, because then you're going to lose your
Uh,
rook. No, rook. Put your rook right next to the king in the only spot.
Oh.
Yeah, there you go. Yep. So now you can take the knight. Whoop, whoop, whoop.
Well, you said now I can. Oh, you're saying to take this knight now.
Yeah, yeah.
Okay. Hmm.
Hmm. Yeah, yeah. Yep. There you go. Finish. Focus a little bit longer. Take the knight. There you go.
So,
Yes, yes. You're a bishop.
yeah.
None of the knight.
Where am I at? Okay, the knight.
Black knight.
Dude, that's another thing the reason I was so puzzled there
Hmm.
is because sometimes I forget that I'm like, dude, sometimes these
Yeah,
pieces can go backward.
yeah. It's all
You
good.
know,
Force the rooks off. How can you force the rooks off?
force the rooks off.
Yeah. Make him give you your rook, or sorry, make him give you his rook in exchange for your rook and leave only
Okay,
one rook.
so if I put my rook here and he took this, because
Yeah.
it didn't take it with this knight.
You can do it with the knight or the rook. You know, the key is just simplify because the rook has no option to move forward. Therefore, yeah. So either the knight or your rook could have taken. Good job.
Still threatened.
Yep. So now keep giving checks. Hold up. Check. Well, let's look for checks first. Okay. That's interesting. It's fine.
I
Okay.
just felt like he wasn't gonna do shit.
Yeah. I like it. I like it. Okay. Hold up. So now we would love to take that pawn, and there's no reason we can't.
Even with the knight.
Well, no, if the knight were to take, the king would just take. So how can we add pressure to that pawn?
I go diagonal here. This
That's one option. Let's consider another one. That's one option. Also, your rook. How could your rook add pressure to that pawn? It could, or
or here.
no, no, no.
Or
It could go. It could add pressure vertically, or it could attack it from the side. Which one is
hmm.
better?
Yeah, I would say here.
You're right. Why?
Just because it's gonna this piece is protecting that piece.
Which is called a pin. Very good job. There's your answer.
Nice. So going to here.
Yeah. Yeah. So now we can give the check we wanted to give. Good. Because it's supported with the knight. Good job. Okay.
Can that piece go? You can only go. Okay, I could technically move this here, right?
Yeah, but then what's good? But then it would just. What would happen if you did?
You just knock this.
No, because your rook would be controlling that, so you would have to retreat left.
Um,
Mhm. Oh, okay, that's fine. Hold. Yeah, you can. Remember how we drew Jimmy last time though? We didn't
mhm,
allow him. We didn't allow him to move,
mhm.
so he can't checkmate himself. So every move you make now needs to come with check, ideally.
Okay, so I need to move this fucking thing into safety, right?
Hmm?
What are,
Well, let's get the rook check. So give the rook check. Rook H5. Good. He only has one move.
yeah, just to make sure that you're
Yep. So
constantly.
now, yeah, yeah, you just make sure. So now you have two options. Give another rook check, protect it with your bishop, or your knight checks. Because your knight can check and defend your rook, which is what I would probably do.
Okay,
But sure.
nice.
Yeah, then you talk some shit if you want. Tell him he's trash, tell him his eyebrows are ugly, but don't be too cruel because
You suck,
karma
Jimmy.
can be a bitch. Although I've been telling Jimmy he's trash for 4 years now,
Really
and
is.
he's never improved or taken constructive feedback. He just kind of takes it over and over.
Yeah. Well,
It's his
dude, I
thing.
can tell you, I will.
He's a beta
The more
robot.
that I just keep understanding what the pieces can do,
Mm-hmm.
you know, because I'm starting to get better to where now, like before when I first started playing with you, I, I was constantly having to ask what a piece can do.
Oh yeah, you did. Oh yeah. Oh yeah. Yeah, now you're at least seeing it. You just got to get some reps in. How did you do against Martin?
So, show.
Yep. So okay, so here, so here is where yeah, it's mine.
Yeah, dude, every time I am around someone that has an iPhone, I just gotta be very careful to make sure that I really do it close.
Yeah. So here, his knight, when you lost your pawn at the start, you could either you could push it, anything that defends that pawn. So even that, anything to defend the pawn, this would be fine to defend the pawn. Just don't want to let him take that pawn, which he did. So that just hangs your pawn is all. But it's fine. And then another thing, won't worry about those. That's all fine. Okay. So there, it was wanting us to take that pawn because it's free.
Mm-hmm.
So if you were to take that pawn, that knight doesn't want to capture because then you would just win the knight back, which is why it liked taking that pawn.
So what's the most common way that, uh, like the most experienced people that play chess, how they attack? Like, what's their first move? They're
You
usually,
talking about opening?
yeah, an opening move, or is it always just different depending on?
Question. There are four at the top level when they're actually trying to win. There are four acceptable opening moves, which are e4, the most popular and the most aggressive, because it e4 automatically activates your bishop and your queen. There's e4, there's d4, there's knight f3, and then there's c4. Those are all acceptable openings at the top level. But I would recommend while you're learning, I would just go e4 or d4 and get comfortable with one. D4, in my opinion, for beginners will lead to more situations that are instructive and easy to understand. Whereas, yeah, D4 is more closed, which is why I like to play it. Sure. Great job. Till next time. Yeah. As I was explaining during the game, this is great because the opponent is completely boxed in. And if the bishop is here, yeah, sure, it can't see the rook yet. But if the knight moves, or we force it to move via trade, then we have discovery options. And when we discover the pawn, our bishop can discover rook. Rook couldn't move. And the pawn would block the queen from saving the bishop if the bishop tried to defend the rook being Keto. Which would mean we win. Wasn't explaining properly, though I saw that at one point before it happened. I was just surprised. That's just a crazy move even for Jimmy. But if the queen would have moved somewhere reasonable, yeah, like there, then all of a sudden we can lose that pawn. Now, if the queen were just there, black takes the pawn and we fight it out. But now, even something like this, it's not good because the knight would come back. So dark bishop takes is fine. but Jimmy's not intelligent. Yeah. And generally, pushing those pawns is risky. So if we can prevent this issue with a piece, that's why we did it. Leave our pawns back and connect our rooks / get our king to safety, as we did in the game. Uh-huh. And this is where, once we pass the beginner ranks, it matters. I was explaining the drawback of that is something such as bishop to d5, because now we have to move our queen a second time. Because easy, we don't have to worry about that, which was the best move, as I saw, is when we go here, if that were to happen, we threaten the bishop. The knight can't discover with check. Well, yeah, it can. It can't discover with check, but it can discover. Oh, sorry. What if it goes there? Then we're going to give our queen away? Okay. Because if there, then there. No, because they come with check. So we don't have time. Yeah, I don't like that. Not to teach. Not to teach. We're not giving our queen away for learning. So it's fine. Beginners will often just take because they can. I'm glad Jimmy did for learning. As I was mentioning here, before we can calculate accurately and very far, look for forks and then rule them out. And never bad to look too much. Of course, we want to save that knight. We don't want to do that because it's met with rook e7 pinning. We have to steal. And now all of a sudden, we're still winning, but it's less comfortable. And as Ashton was mentioning here, we can't do that, else lose our rook. But the pawn's annoying. So, as Ashton said while recording, there's nothing to recapture the knight. So why not capture a free pawn? And now this knight is hanging. Our king's safe. We should have done it earlier. And Ashton, yeah, small likes queen h5 check. And plans might have gone here. Bishop c5. And we would take. And we wanted to get our rook to 7th and check after the king is not controlling d7. We said that there's some dream positions. It's a very simplified version of the dream position exercise. What if we distracted it? Which it doesn't work, but I wanted Ashton to look at it because the king can go up. Now, if there was maybe a pawn way up here, again, dream positions, just to get us thinking, now the king cannot go forward. So if that happened and the king had to go backwards, recognizing this, we could win the rook and only give away our knight, which is why it's good to be thinking about those types of distractions or decoys, I guess. I'm sure, but it's use our good rook as shown immediately in the engine analysis. So why not use our rook that's already one move away from being threatened, having to move it anyway, and not doing much. The pawn's not threatened, so this rook is doing nothing. Move. And I would have liked the opponent not to have done that because here we're going to win no matter what, but there's a lot of learning to be done. Yeah. It would have been a great exercise to have finished the game without those two mistakes. So we could have had some struggle. Losing. Jimmy's a good punching bag. He's not always a good teacher. Great job, Ashton. Beating Jimmy again, as he will every time, just off of sheer talent,
Jimmy the
of
one
being much more confident and quick with his checks.
his kids and grandkids that beat him.
What's that?
Who's the one that sometimes occasionally his grandkids or his kids beat him at chess?
Talking about a robot? That
Uh,
person?
The thing that playing like whenever I chose a character, it would say like, oh, Jim or whatever name, and it said, oh, he sometimes plays with his kids or grandkids. And I mean, I know it's just a bot.
Yeah. It's probably. Have you played any bots besides Jimmy and Martin?
Like, but where I was like, yeah, no help, make it a challenge, and I got fucking served because it was like my first game, and or the first or second game, because dude, you know how we are, Dave, with our competitive nature. I hate feeling like I'm like, a beginner level where I'm like, I sometimes feel like I don't learn enough because I'm not losing enough.
That's how it works.
You know what I mean? Like, because
You gotta hit a Grant Gordon
yeah,
slider instead of your dad underhand tossing balls to you.
somehow played team on baseball got to hit against Grant because and yeah,
In the 2000s. I'm concerned Ashton's gonna be there soon too, because our brains work similarly.
on my team, I had his number. I always hit him really good because I played, when I was 12 or 11, 12, 13, 14. And every year they would have the all-star teams play the younger all-star teams. And Grant, dude, I remember he got so lucky.
On my YouTube lives,
A screaming line.
if it's in chess, or
He was pitching.
if you think you might also be a hashtag late blooming chess prodigy, like me and my cousin are.
You, the Rogersville team that you played on.